Welcome, welcome to all you ladies this morning. My name is Becky, and so welcome online this morning or this evening or here. So we're glad you're here. Today we have Janie Sachs talking to us about the Enneagram and Us, and she can correct me if it's Enneagram or Enneagram because that happens all the time where I can't say it right. So we'll learn more from her later. Next week we have Jamie Green coming. She had been a long time Mothers Together participant before she moved up further north, so she will be back to share her story. And then the following week we have Kay Chin. And then just a note about the spring break weeks. April 10th, we are meeting. And then the 17th, which is the Holy Week, we are not meeting. So those are our two, one break week, and then the other one is not a break week. So, and then May 8th and 10th are our special events. All right. We're still looking if you have any other fun things that you might want to do or host for an event this month. Anyone? We'll think about it. But if you have any leads, let us know. Lent started yesterday, and Menlo Church has a Lenten devotional on YouVersion. So if you'd like to follow along with that, you can check out the YouVersion and search for Menlo's Lenten devotional. This coming Friday, as in tomorrow, there is a parent workshop here at Mountain View and all the other campuses. It's live at Menlo Park. So that's from 6:30 to 9 p.m. Not this Sunday, but next Sunday is Discover Menlo. So if you're looking to get plugged in or learn more about Menlo, that is Sunday the 16th after the 11:30 service at this campus. And I think it's at all campuses, but the times may be a little different. The marriage course starts Wednesdays, starting March 19th for 7 weeks in the evenings online. And then Saturday, March 29th is For the Bay, 5K, 1K, 5K, donate, run, help out, volunteer, the things. And then summer camp, they've got the end of June at Menlo Park and Saratoga, and the end of July for Mountain View and San Mateo. So all those links should be in your email from this past week. All right, I'm going to pray for our morning. God, thank you so much for this time to come together and learn from you and one another. Thank you for these tools to help us understand more about who we are and how we relate to you and other people. I pray that you would help us to use this information to love God and love people better and to love ourselves even more. And see us in light of how you see us through the ways you've equipped us uniquely. Amen. All right, so Janie Sachs is a licensed marriage and family therapist. She's a brain spotting enthusiast, wife, and proud mom of 21-year-old triplets. Yes, a baby tsunami. I can't even quite fathom. Married for over 26 years, Janie finds joy in exploring nature, long scenic hikes, coffee-fueled one-on-one time with friends, and getting lost in a good book. A dedicated Menlo Church member for 15 years, she firmly believes that fresh air, deep conversation, and a strong cup of coffee can solve almost anything. Passionate about brain spotting, a powerful therapy that helps people process emotions and heal from anxiety or past experiences, Janie loves guiding clients toward deep, natural healing. If you feel stuck, brain spotting can help you move forward without overthinking or reliving every detail. As she helps others navigate life's challenges, she's also embracing a new chapter in her own journey. Now that her triplets are officially adults, Janie is savoring the joy of watching them carve out their own unique paths while also appreciating the newfound quiet at home most of the time. So please welcome Janie Sachs.
Good morning. Thank you. As I was driving here this morning, I was feeling a little nervous, and then I came into the parking lot and I was like, oh, these are my people. This is where I actually came to church for maybe 5 of our 15 years at Menlo. So anyway, I was like, oh, this is my church. It's all good. So thank you for being here. I also came here when my kids were really little, and speaking of my kids, yes, I do have triplets, and it's been quite a journey to say the least. But when Elizabeth asked me to speak on the Enneagram, I felt like, wow, how do I take this huge topic and make it fit it into just a really small time? I felt like it was kind of giving birth to a baby, but I was glad it wasn't 3 and it was just this one. So it is the Enneagram, that's how you say it. And I'm wondering if any of you are enthusiasts about documentaries like I am. Does anybody like documentaries? So I've always been a person who loves to watch a good documentary, and mostly the ones that are like the murder mystery one, where somebody did it, who did it, and I always want to know the why. Why did they do it? And not just why did they do it, but what was happening in their family that got them to get to this point where they thought that was a good idea. So therefore, my love of sitting with people, trying to kind of peel back the layers of the onion and try to figure out, why do we do what we do? What drives us to our different behaviors? We are going to just take a really, well, it will be short, but I want to show you kind of where we're going. We're going to look at some of our life patterns. We all have patterns, whether we know it or not. We're going to look at what is the Enneagram, how might the Enneagram help us, and I'm going to just tell you, for starters, we're not going to actually spend a lot of time on the Enneagram itself. When Elizabeth and I spoke about this, it was kind of to sow a seed, to give you a little piece of, what might you think about this? And I'm sure there are some of you who are well-versed in the Enneagram, maybe even more than I am, and so I hope that you'll get something new here today also. And then we're going to talk about where do we go from here and resources. But I wanted to start here. Everyone is a first-time human being. One of the things that I find for myself, that I find for the people who walk into my office, that I find about my friends and my kids, is that we forget that we're on this journey for the very first time. We have these huge expectations for ourselves of who we think we need to be in the world and how we need to do our relationships and how we need to be in relationship with God. And probably all of you have seen books or people talk about, well, you don't get a manual to be a parent, right? But you also actually don't get a manual to be a human. Like, who knows how to do this except you just have to walk through day by day and be a human. So we're going to just start with loads of compassion for ourselves and where we are. And one of the things that I also have to remind myself a lot is that God gives me far more compassion than I begin to give myself. And I'm also much more willing to give others compassion than I am willing to give it to myself. Your verse for this year, Matthew 11, 28 through 30, I'll let you read it up there. But the very first line, are you tired? And I think of Jesus asking the people, are you tired? And I was thinking about women, people, but particularly women, since we're here. Are you tired? I'm imagining that if I went to each table, there would be a lot of different reasons why each of you might name that you're tired today. But I want to point to one of the reasons that I think really makes us tired in the world. And as we go along this morning, I hope that that will become more clear. And it's going to have something to do with patterns. So if you think about patterns, there's a lot of patterns that happen in nature. The sun comes up every single day. I just met someone a couple of weeks ago who said that he tries to get up every morning and see the sunrise. I was like, wow, that's really cool. Change of seasons. In California, I grew up in Michigan, so you know when the change of seasons happens. Not so much here, but we know that the seasons will change, and we're starting to see spring right now. The tide of the ocean. The tide goes in, and the tide goes out. And we know that that's going to happen. We don't think about that pattern. The butterfly migration. I don't know how many of you have been down to Santa Cruz to see the butterfly migration. We don't wonder if that's going to happen or not, although I'm sure there are some years where there are more or less butterflies. But those things just happen. And then for our lovely bodies as women, typically we get our period, and then we get to menopause, and that's a pattern that happens. It's not something we really have any control over. Thinking about other patterns, my guess would be that whatever you did this morning before you came here, there was a pattern to it. I get up, I have a cup of coffee, usually spend a little time in quiet, make my oatmeal, empty the dishwasher while that's being done. Maybe your pattern is not to have a pattern. So we all have those things that we do. And then if you think even more, there's paths in the snow. I love to hike, so there's a path, there's a pattern that I go out each time. But then, if we move just a little bit further and think about our personal patterns, some of us, our perfectionism is a pattern for us. Wherever we go, whatever we do, we feel like maybe we need to present in a perfect way. Maybe our home needs to be perfect before we allow someone to come over. Maybe there's a certain grades that we needed to get when we were in school, or ways that we need to perform perfectly when we go to our work. The next one is actually a favorite of mine, making assumptions about others. We can get into a pattern of making assumptions. I recently read a book, and it was talking about anxiety, and it was talking about one of the reasons why we can have anxiety is because we make assumptions about other people. And so it talked about naming some of the reasons why you might make assumptions. And one of the things that happened for me was I realized that I was judging my neighbor because I was assuming that she was mad at me about something that she and I have never spoken about. So, someone might look at you in a certain way, or they don't answer a text message, and we put all kinds of language and thoughts and reasons to why that might not happen when we really might not know the reason. Avoiding confrontation. I have some friends who will say, I will avoid confrontation at all costs. Like, anytime it comes up, I'm going to go the other way. Taking care of others and neglecting ourselves. Some of us are really focused on, I'm going to take care of you. What can I do for you? How can I help you? And then when it comes to our own care, it's left unlooked at. Peace at all costs. Kind of like avoiding confrontation, but can look like I'm going to keep the peace even if it costs me relationships, even if it costs me really important things in my life. Sometimes we can get stuck in the same themed fights with our significant other, and I will tell you, this actually happened to me last night with my spouse. Such lovely timing before I'm coming here this morning. We have these themes. Someone was praying this morning about how marriage is hard, and we have these themes in our marriages and our significant relationships where if we look, maybe we're fighting about a different thing, but really oftentimes the themes are a pattern that we may have been in for a very long time. Always taking the lead. For some of us, it feels impossible, like at your table today when we go to discussion time. It feels really hard to let somebody else take the lead or to not be the first person to speak, or maybe there's a pattern of you speak a lot, or maybe there's a pattern of you never speak. And so looking at those types of patterns. Another one might be, and I didn't put this on here, but setting unrealistic expectations. I think this is something that often we do in our lives. We set expectations for something that there's no way, and for people that they can never, ever reach. One of the things that I've chosen to do and has been helpful for me is before I go on vacation, which you would think vacation would be great, but is to write down what might be some of the expectations I have about this vacation. One of them might be that my kids are going to get in an argument about something. One might be that we're going to have fun, but all the different things that actually could happen, and so I'm not surprised, at least not as much surprised. So thinking about patterns and what those things are for you. So why are patterns important? Some patterns are harmless, some keep us stuck, and some are clues to what really matters to us. And I like all of this, but thinking about the clues that really matter to us. And one of the things as we go through the next little bit is just really want to encourage you to be curious. to be curious about yourself, to not move into certainty. Once we move into certainty, we get things rigid and it's black and white, but to really allow yourself just to be curious for a moment about who you are and what might be some of the clues about things that keep you stuck or things that really matter to you. So, Suzanne Stabile is, well, let me stop for a second. Suzanne Stabile, actually, I'm going to keep going, I'm going to ask the question later, is one of my most favorite Enneagram teachers. And this is what she says: we all have habitual, mechanical, compulsive ways of behaving in the world, but that's not who we are. But we have identified that as me, and this is what makes us so tired. So, if you think about the ways that you move around the world that are not really who you are, they're just maybe a mask that you feel like you need to walk around the world with. One of my friends did this, and she said that it was okay for me to share it, but one of them says, I'm okay. So everywhere I go, I walk around, and I try to let people know that I'm okay. I don't need you, I'm okay, nothing's really going on. I wonder how many of us do that. I know I am guilty of that. I'm calm. How many of us want to look calm when inside things are churning and there's a storm going on within, but we want to present to the world, all is well, I'm calm. How about competent? How many of us want to be competent and say, I know what's going on, or I've got this, or I understand, I'm smart enough to know X, Y, Z. So again, it's not the true self, but it's actually a mask that we can put on. We can actually put on a mask of faith. We'll see people do this when maybe they are using God sort of as a something to shield them, that it's not really authentic to them, but they know the right language to use. Like, God's going to be with me in this, all will be well. That might be really true, but it's a way to sort of protect them from the pain that's really going on inside of them. Appearance. Appearance can be a mask for us. We have to look a certain way, and for each of us that might be different. And a helper. I'm going to be a helper. I want people to see me as someone who helps. So this is just my friends. We spent some time talking about masks together at a training, and she came up with this list. And so I wonder, just for each one of us to think about what might be some of the things that we feel like we have to be. And this, actually, the masks are our personality, but that is not the essence of who we truly are. And that's why we get so tired in the world, because we feel like we have to come to the world and be something that we're actually not. So where did these masks come from? Beatrice Chestnut is another Enneagram teacher, and she says, each of us is unique and endowed with great potential, but we exist in a kind of waking sleep because of our early childhood programming. I want to just tell you for a moment about myself. My parents have both passed away, but my mom was a very anxious presence, wonderful woman, loved her dearly, but very, very anxious. And everywhere she moved around in the world, I sensed her anxiety, now I know, as a very little girl. My dad loved me. I felt my parents were both loved me and were proud of me, but my dad was very avoidant. He avoided emotions at all costs and avoided anything that was hard. And so what I did as a child to adapt to that was I tried to be everything I could be for my anxious mom and my avoidant dad. How do I get them to love me? So I joined in with mom's anxiety and what can I be for mom so she doesn't have as much anxiety? And how, with dad, can I match that so that he'll love me in that? Even though he's avoidant of me, I want to be seen just a little bit, but I want to make sure that both of them were okay. And so it's developed this lifelong pattern for me of caring more about another than caring about myself, and making sure that other people are okay, and seeing myself as lower down on that list. So that's just an example of our early childhood programming, and none of us chose that, right? And it's not, I don't look and say, wow, my parents, they really blew it. Certainly there were some things that I needed that I didn't get, but that was just my programming. And so now that's how I walk around in the world, and to be aware of that has helped me so much in my relationships with others and with God. I want to take just a minute, because I'm a therapist and because I do a lot of work with trauma. Trauma compromises our ability to engage with others by replacing patterns of connection with patterns of protection. So for me, in my childhood, I put on a pattern of protection, and my protection was to care more for you than to care for me. Instead of connecting with others, I'm going to protect myself at all costs. And the more trauma a person has had, the more they will try to protect themselves versus connect with others. So I just wanted to put that in there because I know that I'm sure there are people here who have experienced a considerate amount of trauma, and I think that's important to note. One other thing, and this is my very first AI image that I've ever created, so that's kind of exciting, is patterns also make us go on autopilot. So if I asked each one of you, like, do you remember where you stopped on the way here, or what lights were red, or what lights were green, you'd be like, I'm guessing, you'd be like, no, I actually don't. And oftentimes, like this woman, you think about her different states. Like she's maybe thinking about her kids. She's got anxiety going on. She might be thinking about, oh, what's wrong with me? Or I didn't make that dental appointment. Or we're often not where we are. Our brains are always going here and there and everywhere. And so it keeps us in those patterns of not paying attention. So all of that, and then to the Enneagram. So I want to ask you, how many of you are familiar with the Enneagram and have heard things about it and maybe know your number? Raise of hands. So some of you. Okay. How many of you have heard of it but I have no idea what your number is? Okay. And how many of you have never heard of it? And there's no shame in that because I've talked to lots of people who have never heard of it. Okay, so kind of a mix of you. So I want to give you just a little bit of history about it. It has roots that stretch back centuries, but the modern framework has come maybe in the 1970s. Stands for 9, and Gram stands for figure, and I'm going to show you a figure of it just in a little bit. It's 9 ways of seeing yourself and how you experience other people. It talks about the best part of you and the worst part of you. And often what is the best part of you is also the worst part about you. And I think it's a tool for seeing, naming, and welcoming God's presence into those places in my life where I can see the best part of me and the worst part of me, that's where God wants to meet me. And so that's how I have used it as a tool to help myself, to help others that I've worked with. Some of you have probably heard of Myers-Briggs, the disc profile. I mean, there's all kinds of these things out. So I want to just show you what the difference is between the two. Other tools are behavior-based. What am I doing? How do I move around in the world? What do I do? Do I behave more this way or do I behave more that way? The Enneagram is actually more motivation-based, meaning why do I do what I do? Who is driving the bus? What motivation is driving the bus? And it's a tool about transformation. It helps us embrace the worst and best of us. And isn't that what God would want to be transforming us to do, is to know the worst and the best of us, and that he welcomes all of that. We do that with non-judgmental awareness and self-compassion. So again, the biggest difference between the Enneagram and other kinds of personality tests are that the Enneagram is, why do I do what I do? Why do I make assumptions about other people? Why do I feel like I have to be perfect? Why do I feel like I need to lead wherever I am? So here is the Enneagram. You may have seen this before, you may have not. And so up at the very top, there are 9 different types. And actually, I'm not going to go into all the details, but you could actually have 54 different types out of this. So it can get super, super complex. But again, I want to just invite you to look at this with curiosity and versus certainty. So there's 9 different types here, and you'll see that in the middle, instead of focusing on the outside, I'm going to have you look in the middle, there's the gut, the head, and the heart. So some of us use our gut first. We have that gut feeling, that stomach feeling. We use our bodies to help us walk around in the world. Some of us use our hearts. We start with our feelings. We start with our intuitions. And some of us use our heads. We use our intellectual part of ourselves to walk around the world. Just 3 different ways. No wrong ways, just different ways. So I'm going to take a really quick minute to go through each of the types, and I'm probably not, since we're at time, the time we're at, I'm going to quickly, So 1 is the perfectionist. And before we do this, try not to put yourself in any of these right now, because just, again, an open heart, curiosity. It actually took me a full year to figure out what number I was, and I did a lot of reading, and I talked to a lot of people. And so I'm just going to go through each type, and I'm going to tell you the best and worst part of each type. Number 1, they're motivated, and again, it's unconsciously, because we don't pick this for ourselves, motivated by a need to perfect themselves, others in the world. So this is the person that you want to do surgery on your brain. They want to make it perfect. The best part of ones is that they see what's wrong or out of place in people, in themselves, in the world, and they want to fix it. And that's also the worst part about ones. And their line is, you are good or okay if you do what is right. So you might be thinking, I might fit there, but just hold on, because you might find another spot, and you'll have to do some more work around figuring that out. Number 2 is helpers. This is where I fit in. I'm unconsciously motivated to serve and meet the needs of other people to win their approval and love. The best part of 2s is that they see and sense the needs for other people and want to be helpful. It's also the worst part. They can spend a lot of time helping. You're good or okay if you're loved by others and are close to them. That's what they live by. Number 3, performers. They're unconsciously motivated by a need to succeed and appear successful and avoid failure at all costs. The very best part of you is that you can adapt immediately and instantly, but it can be also the worst part of you because you lose touch with what's inside and you achieve everything externally. You're good or okay if you are successful and others think well of you. Number 4. The individualist. They're unconsciously motivated by a need to be special and to find themselves and their significance, to create an identity out of their inner experience. 4s really want to be seen and understood in their uniqueness. You're good or okay if you're true to yourself. They cannot find the love they're looking for. 5s are the investigators. The unconscious motivation is to not be helpless, useless, or incapable. The desire is to be capable and competent. The best part is their desire to perceive, but it means to fully understand. And by the time they fully understand something, they either don't want to do it anymore or they don't know that there's more to uncover. You're good or okay if you have mastered something. I have a friend, just on a side note, she reads the whole manual for any new appliance she gets before she even presses any buttons. I'm like, can you please come over and read all my manuals and tell me what all my things do? Like, my dryer probably can do some magic that I don't even know about. 6 are loyalists. They're unconsciously motivated by the need to find security and support. 6s would go down with any ship, which is the best part of them in some ways, but it's also the worst part of them. Because if they are for you, and you end up not being who they thought you were, it's difficult for them to not stay with you. So loyalty here. You're good or okay if you do what is expected of you. 7s. Their unconscious motivation is pursue fun and excitement to avoid unpleasant feelings or face unpleasant realities. Part of them is fun. Best part of them is fun, and the worst part of them is fun, because a lot of life is fun, but not all of it, right? And sometimes we want to, well, me as a 2, I want to look at those deeper things, but 7s are like, you're good or okay if you're happy and satisfied. 8s are challengers. Unconscious motivation is to protect themselves, to determine their own course in life. Best and worst part of them is they possess a strong desire to protect themselves and others, often taking charge in situations to ensure safety and justice. You're good or okay if you're strong and in control of your situations. And 9s, a mediator. Their unconscious motivation is to keep peace at all cost. The best part of them is that they see at least 2 sides to everything. And the worst part of them is that they see at least 2 sides to everything. You're good or okay as long as others around you are good or okay. So, we all have, there's 9 different ways of seeing, and you might think, oh, I fit like 3 of those. That's okay. We don't have to put you in a box, but you might want, that might pique your interest to say, I wonder where I might fit into that, and how I might see the world, and how that might make a difference to my relationships. My husband is a 6 who is the loyalist. I'll take you back to that slide. And I am a 2, so my main thing in life is relationships. He's loyal, and he wants safety and support. His main thing is, are we safe? And that means financially safe. He actually had masks far before COVID ever happened. It's like unbelievable. And very early in our marriage, actually not very early, maybe 10 to 15 years ago, he kept telling me, well, if we can't make it here, we'll just move to Alabama. And I don't know why he chose Alabama, but I was like, what? I do not want to move to Alabama. And I couldn't understand, like, my relationships, like, my people are here, like, and I name all these people, and he said, well, no, like, what if we can't afford to live here? This is what we need to do. It won't be that big of a deal. And until we came to the Enneagram, we couldn't understand how we couldn't, like, get through this place of understanding that my motivation is I want to be with my people. Relationships are the most important thing to me, and they're also the thing that gets me in the most trouble. And for him, safety is the most important thing, and is the thing that also gets him in the most trouble. So it can also be a really helpful tool for being married or in any relationship. Okay. So your Enneagram, let me go back one. Our true essence is who we are under all of that. It doesn't need to be healed, created, or attained. It needs to be allowed, uncovered, and revealed. So people often say, well, I'm a 3, that's why I do that. It's not really the purpose for the Enneagram, because it helps us notice our behavior, but who we are inside is who God made us to be. He didn't make us with those childhood wounds, with those things that want to be to move around the world with those motivations. He sees us without the mask on, without the motivations that help us move around the world. Allowed, uncovered, and revealed. I think about the woman at the well, and I don't know how many of you heard Phil's sermon. For those of you who don't go to Menlo, we had a sermon on Sunday. And thinking about how Jesus saw the woman at the well, and he didn't see her with a mask on, he didn't see what she was motivated by, or he did, probably, but he saw underneath all of that. And that's who we truly are, and who I think God longs for us to find within ourselves, with his help. Your Enneagram number and the passion it reflects represents your false self, which is protecting your true self and the precious virtue within. I'm going to let's see. How much more time? We probably are at almost time. Are you sure? Okay. How is all of this helpful? Your pattern is not you. And the last Enneagram training that I went to is where I finally got this. Like, My pattern of relationships, it's not you. It's not the essence of who God made you to be. It's a way that you move around the world. The pattern of your personality is what makes you tired. It's the best part and the worst part about you. So those masks that we wear are the most tiring parts of us. And I think God just wants to say, are you tired? Give it to me. I want to walk through this with you. I want to try to help you figure this out. So how is all of this helpful? It could help us stop walking around the world on autopilot. Our first step is awareness. Just to notice, maybe you want to just notice, what are some of my patterns? What are some of the things that I do as I walk around the world? Where do I get stuck? What do I find myself doing over and over again? What relationships are the hardest for me? Just noticing, just bringing some awareness to those things. Getting out of our own way and becoming more the person God made me to be. Again, I get in my own way so often, and I think it can be helpful to see. For me, it's been really helpful to see, like, why is it that I get so tired when I'm with people? I'm an introvert, but it's also because I'm so concerned about the other people more than myself. I will always take care of the other person instead of myself, and it's helped me change some of that, which has really been life-giving. Helps me make decisions in relationships for ourselves that are more intentional and true. Intentionality is something that I have a high value for. Why do I do what I do? Why am I doing that? What do I say yes to? What do I say no to? And I think this can really help us with that. And it can bring more compassion for self and for others. A few more things. Learning to embrace what is the best part of you and the worst part of you. I think that's what God does. When you think about David talking in the Psalms about search me and know me, wanting God to know all of those different parts of us. And we know ourselves based on what we get wrong, and what we get wrong is what makes us so tired. I know I've said that over and over, but I think that's really, really important. I think that doing our own work around these things is one of the greatest gifts that we give to ourselves, but we also give to our significant relationships, to our kids, because we can be more truly holy who God has made us to be. There's a saying that says, if we don't transform our pain, we will transmit it. So just, we think about that, transmitting it, and how oftentimes we do when we're not aware of what's going on for us. This is the next part of the very last part of the verse, your theme verse for this year. Keep company with me, and you will learn how to live lightly and freely. And I think that's what Jesus means in this. Obviously, he was not talking about the Enneagram, but I think his goal is that we keep company with him, that we can be okay with who we truly are and who God has made us to be, and so we can live lightly and freely. I know one of the questions that maybe some of you are asking is, well, how do I figure out my number? The Enneagram Institute, I think it's like enneagraminstitute.com, has a great test on it. I think it's like $20. But I will tell you, taking a test is one of the many things I would do to try to figure out what your number is. I'd read, listen more to more podcasts. I've listened to a ton of podcasts about it, trying to figure it out. Again, it took me a year to actually figure out what my number was. And so just different resources for you. These are some books that I used. And Suzanne Stabile they call her like the grandmother of the Enneagram, and she's a believer. She's really great. She's funny. She's just a delight. So if you're interested in more, that might be a good place to go as well. And then the very last slide is the same one. I know that she had put a little bit of a blurb about brain spotting on there, which is something I'm super passionate about, which can help us with some of those wounds that we have from childhood. So I'll just leave that up there. But I hope that this has given you some curiosity about yourself. And I hope that curiosity about yourself will help you to know God just a little bit more, will help you to know yourself just a little bit more, and will help you to move and live in your relationships. So thank you so much for having me. I know I've given you a little taste, and we could go on for hours and hours about this, but we're going to stop there. And so thank you.